My best friend always threw herself at every guy I liked, putting me down in front of everyone. She's not really your type, she'd tell them. I'm more fun. I watched her steal crush after crush while I stayed silent. Then I met Harry. When she tried her usual tricks, flirting, interrupting our conversations, showing up wherever we were, he shut her down cold. I'm here for her, not you. She went insane, texting him constantly, even spreading rumors about me cheating. But he saw right through her. Now we're engaged, and she's still calling. He doesn't really love you. Trust me. Okay, so I need to get this story off my chest because honestly, I'm still processing everything that happened, and my therapist says writing it out might help. Plus, my fiancé keeps telling me I should share this somewhere because apparently it's absolutely wild and other people might relate. So here goes nothing. This whole mess started back in college, but let me give you the background first. I met Brianna during freshman orientation at State. You know how it is, random roommate assignment that somehow worked out. At least, I thought it worked out at the time. She was everything I wasn't, blonde, bubbly, the kind of girl who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. Me? I'm more of the quiet, bookish type. Brown hair, average height, prefer staying in with a good novel over hitting the party scene. Not exactly what you'd call a social butterfly. Brianna and I clicked immediately, or so I thought. She was funny, seemed genuinely interested in being friends, and for someone like me who'd always struggled to make close girlfriends, it felt amazing to finally have that connection. We'd stay up late talking about everything, our families, our dreams, guys we thought were cute. Normal college roommate stuff, right? The first red flag should have been obvious, but hindsight's 20/20 and all that. It was October of freshman year, and I developed this massive crush on Tyler from my biology lab. Sweet guy, pre-med, had this adorable way of getting flustered when he explained cellular respiration. I'd been working up the courage to ask him to study together for weeks, telling Brianna all about it during our late-night talks. Oh my gosh, he sounds perfect for you. She'd say, encouraging me to go for it. You should totally ask him out. So imagine my surprise when I walked into the campus coffee shop that Thursday and saw Brianna practically draped over Tyler at a corner table, laughing at something on his phone. My stomach dropped to my shoes, but I told myself I was being paranoid. They were probably just, I don't know, randomly talking about biology or something. But then I heard her voice carry across the cafe, trust me, Tyler, you don't want to get involved with Olivia. She's sweet and all, but she's not really your type. Way too serious, you know? I'm more fun. I stood there frozen with my iced latte, watching this girl I trusted completely throwing me under the bus to steal my crush. And the worst part? It worked. Tyler was nodding along, clearly charmed by her whole act. By the end of the week, they were dating. When I confronted her about it later, Brianna just shrugged it off. Oh come on, Olivia, you weren't even gonna make a move. I was doing you both a favor, you would have been way too nervous to date him anyway. Trust me, I know what's best for you. The absolute audacity of it all still makes my blood pressure spike, honestly. But here's the thing about being a people pleaser with low self-esteem, you convince yourself that maybe she's right. Maybe I wasn't good enough for Tyler. Maybe she was doing me a favor. Maybe this was just a weird coincidence and our friendship was more important than some guy. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a coincidence. Over the next 3 years, this became our pattern. I developed feelings for someone, confide in Brianna about it, and within weeks she'd swoop in like some kind of romance vulture. There was Logan from my American literature class, she convinced him I was too intellectual and intimidating. Then Sean from the campus bookstore, apparently I was not outgoing enough for him. By senior year, it was Brandon from my internship program, who she managed to steal by showing up to our group happy hour and monopolizing his attention all evening. Every single time, I stayed silent. Every single time, I told myself that maybe she was right about us not being compatible. Every single time, I prioritized our friendship over my own feelings because confrontation has never been my strong suit. The pattern was always the same, she'd position herself as the expert on what these guys really wanted, paint me as somehow lacking or wrong for them, and present herself as the obvious better choice. And it worked, every freaking time. Looking back, I realize how messed up the whole dynamic was. But when you're in it, when someone you trust keeps telling you that you're not good enough, not fun enough, not the right type, you start to believe it. I started seeing myself through her eyes, boring, too serious, not worth pursuing. After graduation, we both ended up in the same city, Boston. Brianna landed some marketing job at a tech startup, and I got into the graduate program for library sciences at Simmons. We got an apartment together in Allston because, despite everything, she was still my closest friend. Or at least, the person I was most used to having around. The pattern continued into our 20s. There was Ethan from my graduate program, She convinced him I was too focused on school, then Dylan from the gym we both joined. Apparently I was not athletic enough for him. By the time I was 25, I'd basically given up on dating altogether. Why bother developing feelings for someone when I knew exactly how it would end? But then, about a year and a half ago, everything changed when I met Harry. I was working part-time at the Boston Public Library while finishing my thesis, and Harry was this regular who came in at every Tuesday and Thursday to work on his laptop. He was a freelance graphic designer, working on some project for a local nonprofit. Quiet, thoughtful, always polite to the staff. He had this way of getting completely absorbed in his work that I found oddly attractive, the way he'd furrow his brow when he was concentrating, how he'd unconsciously run his hand through his dark hair when he was thinking. For weeks, our interactions were limited to polite nods and the occasional excuse me when one of us needed to get past the other. But then one Thursday in March, his laptop died right there in the reading room. The poor guy looked absolutely panicked. Apparently he had a major deadline the next day. "Are you okay?" I asked, breaking our usual silence. "My laptop just crashed and I haven't backed up today's work," he said, running that hand through his hair in the way I'd noticed. "I'm probably screwed." Now, I'm not exactly a tech expert, but I dealt with enough computer disasters in graduate school to know a few tricks. "Want me to take a look?" "Sometimes it's just overheated or something simple." Long story short, I managed to get his laptop running again. Turned out it was just a loose connection that needed to be reseated. Nothing major, but Harry acted like I'd performed some kind of miracle. "You literally just saved my entire project," he said, looking at me with this expression of genuine gratitude and something else. "Interest, maybe? Can I at least buy you coffee or something? There's got to be some way I can thank you." That coffee turned into a 3-hour conversation at the little place across from the library. We talked about everything: his work, my thesis on community library programs, books we'd both read, places we wanted to travel. He was funny in this dry, understated way that caught me completely off guard. And here's the thing that really got me: he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. He asked follow-up questions, remembered details I'd mentioned earlier in the conversation, made me feel like my opinions actually mattered. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Like the person sitting across from me was paying attention to who I actually was, not just waiting for his turn to talk. We started meeting regularly after that. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates, which turned into long walks around the city, which turned into spending entire weekends talking and laughing together. Harry was different from anyone I'd ever dated: patient, thoughtful, genuinely kind. He listened when I talked about my research, asked intelligent questions about library science, even came to my thesis defense to cheer me on. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't tell Brianna about it right away. I don't know what made me keep it to myself initially. Maybe some survival instinct finally kicked in after years of watching her sabotage my relationships. Or maybe I just wanted to enjoy something that was purely mine for a while. Whatever the reason, I managed to keep Harry's secret for almost 2 months. But of course, that couldn't last forever. Boston's not that big a city, especially when you're dating someone who works in the same general area where you spend most of your time. It was bound to happen eventually. The reveal came in the most mundane way possible. Brianna and I were grabbing lunch at this sandwich place near the library, and Harry walked in. Our eyes met across the room, and he came over with this huge smile. "Olivia. I didn't know you came here," he said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. "How's the thesis revision going?" I could practically feel Brianna's radar pinging beside me. "Oh, Harry, this is my roommate Brianna." "Brianna, this is Harry." The transformation in Brianna's demeanor was immediate and terrifying. It was like watching a predator lock onto prey. Suddenly she was all smiles and flirtatious energy, extending her hand with that practiced charm I'd seen her use so many times before. "Harry. Oh my gosh, Olivia never mentioned you. How do you two know each other?" And just like that, I watched the familiar pattern begin to unfold. Brianna started asking Harry all these questions about his work, his hobbies, acting fascinated by every single answer. She managed to work in several digs at me disguised as friendly teasing. "Oh, Olivia's always got her nose in a book, you must not see much of her. And I keep telling her she needs to get out more, have some actual fun for once." But here's where things went differently than they ever had before. Harry wasn't buying it. Not even a little bit. "Actually," he said, cutting Brianna off mid-sentence, "Olivia's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. We have plenty of fun together." The look on Brianna's face was priceless, like she'd been slapped. She recovered quickly, laughing it off and changing tactics, but I could see the wheels turning. This wasn't going according to her usual script. After Harry left to get his food, Brianna immediately launched into damage control mode. "He seems nice," she said, but there was something sharp in her voice. Kind of serious though, don't you think? Are you sure he's really your type? Here we go, I thought. What do you mean? I don't know, he just seems a little intense? Like he might be too much work, you know? You deserve someone who's more easygoing, more fun. Someone who really gets you. For the first time in our entire friendship, I felt a flash of genuine anger. He does get me, Brianna. Better than anyone ever has, actually. She backed off for the moment, but I knew this was far from over. And boy, was I right. Over the next few weeks, Brianna launched what I can only describe as a full-scale campaign to insert herself into my relationship with Harry. She started suggesting group activities. We should all go see that new movie together. She'd show up at places where she knew Harry and I were meeting. Oh my gosh, what a coincidence running into you guys here. She even went so far as to friend him on social media and start liking and commenting on everything he posted. But the thing is, Harry saw right through it all. The first time she crashed one of our dates, showing up at the restaurant where we were having dinner because she happened to be in the neighborhood, Harry was polite but distant. After she left, he turned to me and said, "Does she do this a lot?" I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear into the floor. She's just very social. She likes meeting new people. Olivia, Harry said gently, she's not trying to meet me. She's trying to compete with you. The fact that someone else could see what I'd been blind to for years was both validating and mortifying. Here was this person I was falling hard for, watching my best friend try her usual tricks, and he wasn't falling for any of it. Things came to a head about a month later at this party Brianna's coworker was throwing. She'd insisted we all go together, and I'd reluctantly agreed because, honestly, I still hadn't figured out how to handle the situation. Part of me was hoping that if I just ignored it, it would somehow resolve itself. The party was typical Boston 20-something stuff: craft beer, indie music, people clustered around talking about their jobs and their weekend plans. Harry and I had been having a great time, talking to a few of my library school friends who were there, when Brianna appeared at my elbow with 2 drinks. "Olivia, you look so tired. Here, I got you this," she said, pressing a glass into my hand. Then, turning to Harry with that megawatt smile, "You don't mind if I steal her for a few minutes, do you?" Before I could protest, she was dragging me toward the kitchen, leaving Harry standing there looking confused and slightly annoyed. "What are you doing?" I hissed once we were out of earshot. "I'm trying to help you," Brianna said, but her voice had that edge it got when she was frustrated. "Can't you see he's getting bored? You've been talking to the same people all night. He needs someone who can actually entertain him." "He's not bored, Brianna. We're having a good time. Olivia, trust me on this. I know guys, okay? He's being polite, but I can tell he's not really into it. You're being too serious, too focused on those boring library people. He needs someone who can bring out his fun side." That's when something inside me finally snapped. Maybe it was the drinks, or maybe it was just 7 years of accumulated frustration, but for the first time in our entire friendship, I looked Brianna straight in the eye and said, "No." "What?" I said, "No. You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to tell me what Harry needs or what's wrong with me or why I'm not good enough. I am good enough, and if you can't handle that, then maybe we have a problem." Brianna's face went through several emotions at once: surprise, anger, something that might have been panic. "Olivia, I'm trying to look out for you." "No, you're not. You're trying to steal my boyfriend like you've stolen every other guy I've ever liked, and I'm done pretending it's for my own good." I left her standing in the kitchen and went back to find Harry, who was chatting with my friend Nicole about some book they'd both read. When he saw me approaching, his whole face lit up. "There you are. Nicole was just telling me about this author I've never heard of. I was hoping you could weigh in." And that's when it hit me: this man was genuinely happy to see me. Not tolerating me, not settling for me, not killing time until someone better came along. He was glad I was there. I looked back toward the kitchen and saw Brianna watching us, her expression unreadable but definitely not happy. For the rest of the night, she kept trying her usual tactics, inserting herself into our conversations, touching Harry's arm while she talked, making little comments designed to make me look bad. But Harry wasn't having any of it. Every time she tried to monopolize his attention, he'd steer the conversation back to include me. When she made one of her backhanded comments about my serious nature, he'd counter with something about how much he valued my intelligence. The final straw came when we were getting ready to leave. Brianna had had quite a few drinks by then, and her filter was completely gone. "Harry," she said, swaying slightly as she grabbed his arm, "you seem like such a fun guy. You should really think about whether Olivia's the right fit for you. I mean, she's sweet and all, but she's not exactly the party type, you know? Someone like you probably needs someone more outgoing." Harry looked down at her hand on his arm, then back at her face, and his expression went completely cold. Actually, Brianna, he said, removing her hand firmly but not ungently, Olivia is exactly my type. She's intelligent, thoughtful, funny, and genuine. Everything I look for in a person, actually. So thanks for the advice, but I'm good. Brianna's face went through about 5 different shades of red. I'm just saying I'm here for her, not you, Harry interrupted. I think it's time we called it a night. The ride home was silent except for the sound of Brianna texting furiously in the back seat. Harry walked me to our apartment door, gave me a long kiss goodnight, and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, though honestly I wasn't sure if I was okay or not. Everything felt different now, like some fundamental shift had occurred that I couldn't quite name yet. "We'll talk tomorrow?" he asked. "Yeah. Tomorrow." But before tomorrow came, Brianna made sure to have her say. I'd barely gotten my shoes off when she launched into what I can only describe as a complete meltdown. "I cannot believe you talked to me like that in front of everyone," she started, following me toward my bedroom. "After everything I've done for you, all the times I've tried to help you with guys, and this is how you repay me." "Help me?" I turned around, suddenly furious. "Brianna, you haven't helped me once. You've sabotaged every relationship I've ever tried to have." "That's not true. Those guys weren't right for you. I was protecting you." "From what? From being happy? From finding someone who actually likes me? From getting hurt," she shouted. "From dating guys who would have dumped you anyway. At least when I got involved, you didn't have to go through the humiliation of them realizing you weren't good enough on their own." The words hung in the air between us like poison. In that moment, I finally understood what our entire friendship had been built on: Brianna's need to feel superior to me, and my willingness to let her. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my room. Get out of my life. We're done." Brianna's face crumpled, and for a second she looked like the girl I'd met freshman year, scared and vulnerable. But then the mask slipped back into place. "Fine," she said. "But don't come crying to me when Harry realizes what I've been trying to tell him all along. Don't blame me when he figures out that you're not worth the trouble." She slammed my bedroom door so hard that our cheap apartment walls shook. I sat on my bed for a long time that night, processing everything that had happened. Part of me felt guilty. Brianna had been my closest friend for 7 years, after all. But a bigger part of me felt relieved. Like I'd finally stood up for myself after years of being walked on. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from Brianna. The messages started apologetic. "Olivia, I'm so sorry about last night. I was drunk and said things I didn't mean. Can we talk?" But as the night went on and I didn't respond, they got progressively more desperate and nasty. "You're making a huge mistake. Harry's going to get bored of you within a month. You'll see I was right about everything." And then, around 3 a.m., they got weird. I texted Harry to apologize and he hasn't responded. "What did you tell him about me?" That's when I realized Brianna had completely lost it. Over the next few days, her behavior escalated to genuinely disturbing levels. She started texting Harry directly, sending him long messages about how I was manipulative and not who he thought I was. She told him I'd been bad-mouthing him to our friends. I hadn't. She even claimed I was seeing someone else behind his back. Definitely wasn't. Harry showed me some of the messages, and they were intense. Pages and pages of rambling text about how she was trying to save him from making a mistake and how I was using him and didn't really love him the way she could. "Is she okay?" Harry asked after showing me a particularly unhinged message she'd sent at 2 a.m. "Like, mentally?" I honestly didn't know. This level of obsession was new, even for Brianna. Things got even weirder when she started showing up places. Our gym, the coffee shop where Harry and I liked to meet, even the library where I worked. She'd always have some excuse. She was just in the neighborhood or meeting a friend nearby, but it was obvious she was following us. The breaking point came about 2 weeks after the party incident. Harry and I were having dinner at this little Italian place in the North End, just talking about our days and planning a weekend trip to Vermont, when Brianna appeared at our table. "Hi guys," she said brightly, as if nothing had happened. "Mind if I join you?" Harry and I exchanged a look. "Actually, Brianna, we're kind of in the middle of something," I said. "Oh, I won't stay long. I just wanted to apologize to both of you for how I acted at the party. I was way out of line." She pulled out a chair and sat down before we could protest. For the next 20 minutes, she monopolized the conversation, talking about work, asking Harry about his projects, acting like everything was completely normal. But I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the way she was watching Harry's reactions, testing to see if her apology had worked. When he remained polite but distant, I watched her get more and more desperate. Finally, Harry put down his fork and looked directly at her. "Brianna," he said, his voice calm but firm. I appreciate you wanting to apologize, but I think you need to understand something. Olivia and I are together. We're happy together. Your opinion about whether we're compatible or whether I should be with someone else is not relevant to our relationship. Brianna's smile faltered slightly. I know, I'm not finished, Harry continued. The way you've been treating Olivia, the things you've said about her, the text messages you've been sending me, it all needs to stop. Olivia is an amazing person, and frankly, the fact that you've spent years trying to convince her otherwise says a lot more about you than it does about her. Brianna's face went white, then red, then white again. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Harry said. I understand that you're used to getting what you want by putting other people down. But it's not going to work with me, and it's not going to work anymore with Olivia. He stood up and put money on the table for our check. Come on, Olivia. Let's go somewhere we can finish our dinner in peace. As we walked out, I could hear Brianna behind us, her voice getting shrill. This isn't over, Olivia. He's going to see who you really are eventually. That night, the text messages started again. But this time, they weren't just going to me and Harry, she was texting our mutual friends, our former classmates, even people from work. Spreading rumors about how I was jealous and couldn't handle her success with men. How I was turning Harry against her and isolating him from his friends, which was particularly rich since Harry had more friends than I did and got along great with all of them. Some people believed her, at least initially. Brianna had always been charming, good at telling her side of the story in a way that made her seem like the victim. But the thing about lies is that they fall apart under scrutiny, and Brianna's story had more holes than Swiss cheese. Plus, our mutual friends had known both of us for years. They'd seen the pattern, even if they'd never said anything about it. When Brianna started her smear campaign, several people reached out to me privately to ask if I was okay and to let me know they didn't believe what she was saying. My friend Hannah from library school put it best, I've watched Brianna steal your crushes since sophomore year. I always wondered when you were going to stand up to her. The final escalation came about a month later. Harry and I had been talking about moving in together, my lease was up at the end of summer, and things between us had gotten serious enough that it made sense. We were looking at apartments online one evening when my phone rang. It was Brianna's mom. Olivia, honey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm worried about Brianna. She's been calling me crying about you and some boy, and she's not making much sense. Did something happen between you two? I'd always liked Mrs. Reynolds. She was a sweet woman who'd welcomed me into their home countless times over the years. I felt terrible that Brianna had dragged her into this mess. We had a falling out, I said carefully. I'm dating someone she doesn't approve of, and things got complicated. She said you stole her boyfriend? My heart sank. Of course that's how Brianna would spin it. No, Mrs. Reynolds. I met someone on my own, and Brianna tried to interfere. When it didn't work, she got upset. There was a long pause. Olivia, can I ask you something? And please be honest with me. Of course. Has Brianna done this before? With other boys you've dated? The question hung in the air. Mrs. Reynolds was asking me to tell her that her daughter had a pattern of cruel behavior spanning nearly a decade. But she was also asking because she suspected it was true. Yes, I said quietly. She has. Another long pause. I was afraid of that. She's been different since you two stopped talking. Obsessive. I found a notebook in her room full of information about your boyfriend, his work, his address, his family. I think she needs help, Olivia. That conversation was what finally convinced me to take legal action. I'd been hoping Brianna would eventually calm down and move on, but the stalking behavior was escalating, and now it was affecting other people too. Harry and I went to the police the next day to file a restraining order. We had documentation of everything, the text messages, the social media harassment, witness statements from friends who'd seen her following us. The officer who took our report said it was one of the clearest cases of stalking he'd seen. When Brianna was served with a restraining order, she violated it within 24 hours by calling Harry's work phone to tell his boss that he was involved with a dangerous person who was manipulating him. That earned her a night in jail and a court date. The hearing was surreal. Brianna showed up with a lawyer and everything, trying to paint herself as the victim of a malicious prosecution by a jealous ex-friend. She claimed I was lying about our history, that she'd never interfered in my relationships, that Harry was somehow controlling me and turning me against her. But here's the thing about having documentation, it's hard to argue with text messages, emails, and witness testimony. When the judge saw the evidence, not just from the recent stalking, but from years of similar behavior that our mutual friends testified about, Brianna's story fell apart completely. The judge granted a permanent restraining order and ordered Brianna to attend counseling. In his words, her behavior showed a disturbing pattern of manipulation and harassment that needed professional intervention. That was 10 months ago. Harry and I moved in together last spring to a beautiful apartment in Cambridge, far enough from our old neighborhood that we don't have to worry about random encounters. We adopted a cat named Fitzgerald, yes, after F. Scott. We're both literature nerds. Harry proposed 5 months ago on the anniversary of the day we met at the library, with a ring he'd hidden inside a hollowed-out book of poetry. We're planning a small wedding for next fall, just close friends and family. Nothing fancy, just a celebration of what we've built together. But Brianna? Brianna is still calling. She can't contact me or Harry directly because of the restraining order, but she's found creative ways around it. She calls my parents, my work, even the vendors we've hired for the wedding. Always with the same message: he doesn't really love her. Trust me, I know him better than she does. She's making a mistake. My mom finally blocked her number after Brianna called sobbing at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, claiming she had important information about Harry that I needed to know for my own safety. When my mom asked what information, Brianna hung up. The wedding photographer we hired called last week to let me know someone had contacted them claiming to be my concerned friend and warning them that I was unstable and might not pay my bill. When the photographer asked for specifics, the caller couldn't provide any and hung up. It's honestly kind of sad at this point. Brianna has spent so much energy trying to prove that Harry doesn't really love me that she's destroyed any credibility she might have had. Even people who initially believed her stories have started to see the pattern, the desperate phone calls, the constantly changing accusations, the way she can't seem to move on with her own life. I heard through mutual friends that she's been through 3 different jobs since our court hearing, mostly because she keeps getting distracted by her obsession with exposing me and Harry. Her social media is a mix of vague posts about fake friends and truth coming to light interspersed with increasingly desperate attempts to make her own life look exciting and fulfilling. The irony is that if Brianna had just been happy for me, if she'd been the friend I thought she was, she could have been part of our happiness. Harry's a good guy who's always tried to be inclusive of my friends. If she hadn't immediately gone into predator mode, she probably would have ended up being part of our friend group, maybe even a bridesmaid at our wedding. Instead, she's made herself into a cautionary tale about what happens when jealousy and entitlement go unchecked. I've learned a lot about myself through all of this. For years, I thought I wasn't good enough, interesting enough, fun enough to keep someone's attention. I let Brianna convince me that I was lucky to have her friendship, that without her intervention, I'd end up alone and disappointed. But being with Harry has shown me who I really am when I'm not being told I'm inadequate all the time. I'm funny, not in a loud, attention-grabbing way, but in a quiet, observational way that makes the people I care about smile. I'm interesting, maybe not to everyone, but definitely to the right person. I'm worth loving, not as a consolation prize or a backup plan, but as a first choice. The relationship I have with Harry isn't perfect because no relationship is, but it's built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and the kind of partnership where we both try to bring out the best in each other. Not once has he made me feel like I need to be someone else to keep his interest. Not once has he suggested that I'm too serious, too boring, too anything. When I told him about my fears that maybe Brianna was right, maybe I wasn't fun enough or outgoing enough for him, he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Olivia, he said, I fell in love with you specifically because of who you are. The way you get excited about books, how you remember tiny details about conversations we had months ago, the fact that you'd rather have one meaningful conversation than 10 superficial ones. Why would I want you to be someone else? That's when I realized that all those years of feeling inadequate weren't because I was actually inadequate, they were because I was spending time with someone who needed me to feel that way to feel good about herself. Brianna was never trying to protect me from heartbreak. She was trying to protect herself from the possibility that I might be happy without her, that I might be lovable without her input, that I might not need her constant guidance about my own life. The saddest part is that she could have been part of my happiness if she'd been able to celebrate it instead of trying to destroy it. But you know what? I'm done being sad about it. I'm done feeling guilty for standing up for myself. I'm done wondering if I should have handled things differently. I found someone who loves me exactly as I am, and I'm marrying him in 8 months. We're building a life together based on honesty, mutual support, and genuine affection. We laugh together every day, we support each other's dreams, and we're planning a future that neither of us has to pretend to want. Brianna can keep calling everyone we know, trying to convince them that our happiness is somehow fake or doomed. But the people who matter can see the truth, that we're 2 people who found each other and chose each other, not as a consolation prize or a settling situation, but as genuine partners who make each other better. And if that threatens her so much that she's willing to destroy her own life trying to undermine ours? Well, that says everything about her and nothing about us. As for the people reading this who might see themselves in my story, whether you're the friend being undermined or the friend doing the undermining, I have some advice. If you recognize yourself as the Olivia in this situation, trust your instincts. If someone consistently makes you feel bad about yourself, consistently undermines your relationships, consistently positions themselves as the expert on what you deserve, they are not your friend. Real friends celebrate your happiness, even when it doesn't center them. Real friends want you to succeed, even when your success doesn't benefit them directly. And if you recognize yourself as the Brianna, please get help. This level of possessiveness and sabotage isn't normal friendship behavior, and it's not sustainable. You deserve to have your own happiness instead of spending your energy trying to destroy someone else's. The thing about revenge is that the best kind isn't something you plan or execute, it's just living well despite someone's attempts to tear you down. Brianna spent years trying to convince me I wasn't worthy of love, and now I'm planning a wedding to someone who thinks I'm the best thing that ever happened to him. She can keep calling, keep spreading rumors, keep trying to poison our happiness. But every day that Harry and I wake up together, every time we laugh at something stupid on TV, every moment of ordinary, comfortable happiness we share, that's the best revenge of all. Because at the end of the day, the people who matter can see the truth, that love isn't about being the most fun person in the room or the most outgoing or the most anything. It's about finding someone who sees you clearly and chooses you anyway, not despite who you are, but because of it. And I finally found someone who sees me clearly and loves what he sees. The wedding planning has been everything I dreamed it would be, stress-free, collaborative, and focused on what actually matters. Harry and I spend our evenings addressing invitations while watching old movies, taste-testing catering options, and laughing about how his mom keeps trying to add more people to the guest list. It's the kind of ordinary, comfortable happiness that I never thought I'd have. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stood up to Brianna years earlier. Would she have backed down, or would we have had this confrontation eventually no matter what? Would those relationships she sabotaged have worked out, or was Harry always meant to be the one who saw through her manipulation? But honestly, I try not to spend too much time on what-ifs. The past is what it is, and I can't change it. What I can do is make sure I never let anyone treat me that way again. Harry and I have talked about having kids someday, and one thing we've already agreed on is that we want to raise them to have strong boundaries and healthy self-esteem. We want them to know their worth isn't dependent on other people's opinions of them, and that real friends lift you up instead of tearing you down. I've also made a conscious effort to build better friendships. I'm closer now with people like Hannah from library school, who've always been supportive and genuine. I've joined a book club through the library system, where I've met some wonderful people who share my interests without making me feel like those interests are somehow inadequate. It's amazing how much your social life improves when you stop spending time with people who make you feel bad about yourself. The restraining order is still in effect, and will be for another 2 years. Brianna's counseling seems to be helping to some degree. The frequency of her attempts to contact us has decreased, though they haven't stopped entirely. Last month she somehow got my work email address and sent me a long message about how she'd figured out what Harry's real motivations were and how she was trying to save me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I forwarded it to my lawyer and blocked the email address. At this point, Brianna's obsession with proving that my relationship is doomed has become more pathetic than threatening. The funny thing is, her predictions about Harry getting bored with me or realizing I wasn't his type have been so spectacularly wrong that they've actually become a running joke between us. When I'm having a bad day or feeling insecure about something, Harry will sometimes say, "Well, according to Brianna, I should be realizing you're not my type any day now," and we'll both laugh about how ridiculous that is. Because the truth is, 2 years in, Harry and I are more compatible than ever. We've seen each other through stressful periods, job changes, family drama, the whole Brianna situation, and we've consistently chosen to support each other rather than compete or tear each other down. We've built something real and lasting, based on mutual respect and genuine affection. That's what Brianna never understood about relationships. They're not competitions to be won through manipulation and sabotage. They're partnerships built on trust, communication, and shared values. You can't trick someone into loving you, and you can't convince someone they shouldn't love someone else if that love is genuine. The people who've stuck around through all of this drama are the ones worth keeping. They're the ones who'll be at our wedding, celebrating our happiness without any ulterior motives or hidden agendas. They're the ones who've shown me what real friendship looks like, supportive, honest, and free from the constant undercurrent of competition that characterized my relationship with Brianna. As I write this, Harry's in the kitchen making us Sunday morning pancakes, and I can hear him humming some song that's been stuck in his head all week. Fitzgerald is sprawled across my lap, purring loudly enough to wake the neighbors. In a few hours, we'll drive out to look at venues for our reception, then stop by his parents' house for dinner. It's a perfectly ordinary Sunday morning, and I'm happier than I ever imagined I could be. Brianna can keep calling people, keep spreading her theories about why our relationship is fake or doomed or whatever narrative she needs to tell herself. But every ordinary moment of happiness Harry and I share is proof that she was wrong about everything, wrong about what he wanted, wrong about what I deserved, wrong about what real love looks like. The best revenge isn't elaborate or dramatic. It's just living well, loving openly, and refusing to let someone else's bitterness poison your joy. And you know what? I'm really, really good at that kind of revenge. Update, 2 months later, I'm getting married in 6 weeks, and Brianna's latest attempt to save me was calling the church to tell them I was mentally unstable and being coerced into marriage. The pastor called to check on me, we had a good laugh about it, and now there's a note in my file about not believing any calls from concerned friends who won't give their names. Some people never learn. But that's okay. I'm too busy being happy to care anymore. Thanks for reading, everyone. Sometimes the best revenge is just proving that you were worthy of love all along. To anyone dealing with a toxic friend who consistently undermines your relationships, trust your instincts, set boundaries, and don't let anyone convince you that you're not worthy of genuine happiness. You are. TLDR, my best friend spent years stealing every guy I was interested in, then lost her mind when one finally chose me instead. Now we're engaged and she's still having a meltdown about it.